Paper, yeah. Yo, I feel like right now, of course, there's a lot of stuff I like to share and get off my chest, but this video specifically about being a man, becoming a man, being a boy, becoming a man, and uh, being a man, becoming an older man, and um, how folks oftentimes basically try to manipulate you based on that and prey on your insecurities. And where do I even want to start this? You know what's funny? Like, yo, you guys know I rap, I make music and all this stuff. And I remember one time at like a show or event, or I was talking with some other guys and they were talking about it's crazy because so many men are rapping for men, meaning the approval of men or wanting to, be praised by men. First off, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And yeah, I don't think that there's anything wrong with men wanting to be praised by men. I think the sentiment the person had when they were saying this, though, is that like these dudes are talking about how many girls they get and this and that. Meanwhile, their real goal is to, get love from the boys. And, my thought is that when you look at, it's so easy to basically manipulate men. And you hear a lot about manipulation of women. I think that's become like a buzzword. And it's a real thing that happens in relationships and in other types of situations and all of that. But you hear very little talk about the manipulation of men, and particularly young men who are developing and, looking for guidance. They're looking for just acceptance. And this manipulation often gets young men into gangs. If you don't maybe have a father figure or a lot of friends, or you're just bored, you might not be good at school or good at sports, or you're just worried for your safety. And so you end up getting into something like that to be able to, sustain yourself, and folks are manipulated that way. But what made me actually think of this was I was on Reddit. What made me think of even doing this video is I was on Reddit, and like it was a video about a podcast clip, and the guy was saying stuff as like, as men, blah, blah, blah. And, I feel like as men, blah, 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 blah. And there was a comment on Reddit and says like, whenever somebody says something about as men, they're usually about to say something really stupid, or these guys end up being the biggest, I'll say wusses, to keep it as clean as possible for this video. And yeah, that's a form of manipulation, right? Like when folks are like, oh, as men, we need to be doing this, or as men, we need to be doing that. It's like, what? Like, why? Like, where is this book of men? Like, where is the Bible of men and what it is to be a man that you guys are all like referencing? And half the time, these people saying this have never had a positive male role model in their life, or they've only seen some on TV, on a sitcom or something like that, but they don't even know anything about positive male role models. So that's a whole thing where there will be guys that say like, as men, we do this, and they'll stereotype all men to basically validate their own insecurities. Be like, as men, sometimes we feel like we need to like check somebody in a room, da, da, da. It's like, nah, bro, that's you. As you feel like that. And yeah, so that's a whole part of it, right? And another part of it, which is the bigger part, and I've talked about this some in some stand-up I do, but it's like when someone says like be a man, it's literally what they're about to say after that. 90% of the time, I'll say 90, I won't say 99 and exaggerate. I'm gonna say 90% of the time, whatever they're about to say after that is not gonna benefit you in the short term, the medium term, or the long term. When somebody says, yo, be a man and blank, like whatever I do, I'm gonna be a man. There's nothing that you can do to take away me being a man. So be a man and blank. What? I don't need to. I'm already that. But see, because masculinity and manhood is so basically, it's so skinny and so fragile. It really is fragile. That folks will use that to manipulate you to do something. You rarely hear somebody say, oh, just be a woman and blank, and try to get you to do something. They might tell women to be more ladylike, or a lady wouldn't do that, or some of the stuff is more subtle. So there's definitely things that are done to try to keep women in check and basically manipulate them into doing things that they might not want to do. But for men, the whole be a man, and like, I remember one time I have a bus. Y'all know I got a big bus. And I was driving the bus in the park, parking it next to the park because we're about to do a pop-up and like sell some clothes, this type of thing. And, it's Brooklyn, so there's a lot of TV and film shoots happening all the time. And what they do is they block off the side of the street like a day before they do the shoot. So all day, the shoot might be on Sunday. All day Saturday, they're blocking off the street and not letting you park there. Even though their permit doesn't start till Sunday, they'll pay somebody to basically watch the street all day the day before and try to stop people from parking there. It's not a cop. It's not any type of actual security guard. It's just somebody who's paid by that shoot or production to basically watch the street, right? This dude, I'm parked there. I'm sitting up. We're about to do an event or something like that. This dude comes up to my car and is like, hey, man, you can't park here. You need to move. Da, 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 da. I'm sitting right in front of the sign. I'm like, oh, no, I see the sign. I can park here. He's like, no, man, you can't park here. You need to move. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nah, bro. I can park here. I see the sign. And he's like, and mind you, my window's rolled up. It's a little cold outside or whatever. My window's rolled up. And he's like, and I roll it down a little bit to like communicate with him. And he's like, come on now, be a man and open the door and just talk to me like a man. That's what he's like. He's like, talk to me like a man and open the door and da 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 da. I'm like, here's the thing. First off, you think that that's gonna work. And that was one of the first thing he defaulted to. This guy thought that was gonna work to get me to open the door. Yo, that's like saying something like, oh, you're just being a chicken. Like 90s disses. You're being a chicken. Hey, be a man and da da da. Look, bro. No. No, I'm gonna be a woman right now, since that's what you think, and keep my door closed, since that's what you think. And I can still have this conversation with you, and I don't owe you anything, and I can park here. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's extremely disrespectful when somebody says like, be a man and blank. Because when you start to really, really look at it, what they're implying is, if you don't do this, you're not a man. If you don't do this, they're not a man. First off, who makes them the like king of manhood, where they can take away and give manhood? And then also, it's like, wait, how does that serve me? How does that serve me? Or the people that I care about? And speaking of people that you care about, a lot of times, a whole lot of times, folks that you care about the most will use the fact that you are the fact that you're a man. They're going to use that to try to get you to do something you want to do. And I've seen, this is one of the top female manipulation tactics. I'm not an expert on all the male manipulation tactics, and I know that they exist. I know that they're real, and they're kind of talked about ad nauseum. They're lately in the last, I would say, 8 years, which has been kind of my coming of age. Those are talked about a lot. So much so that you would think that women don't manipulate people. You would think that women don't have manipulation tactics. And the whole be a man thing, I think, is a universal manipulation tactic of men that advertisers use, that, you know, the military will use, that the government will use, that schools use, that music and media uses, but women definitely use it. And I've seen this recently. I don't want to say recently. I've seen this before, though, in dating, you know, and I've experienced dating women that were much older than me, right? Like close to 20 years older. And I won't say dating. I'll say like, I think dating is a fine term for it, right? But what surprised me so much is like I've, you know, dated people that are a couple years older than me, maybe like 3 or 4 or 5 years. That doesn't feel like too much. Once you're grown, that's not too much. But 20 years, 17 years, 18 years, that starts to get into you're a different generation. You're, you know, and a lot of times it's cool. But what's interesting to me is that generation has very, and this is from my small sample size, so it's not like I've had a bunch of experience with this, but getting to be in a intimate situation and have these conversations with people that are, you know, a few decades older than me, and kind of get to see where their head is at around dating. It's kind of the like the consistent dating topics that people already talk about, like supporting somebody and caring for somebody or paying for stuff, or who initiates stuff like that. That's kind of like been, again, talked about so much. But yeah, like I was dating this older person before, and she was like, oh, like, you know, if I'm going out with a man, then he needs to take care of everything. And like, they just need to be a man. And like, that's just what the man is supposed to do. And, you know, take care of everything. Basically, like when it comes to like paying for stuff and all of that, which honestly, that's her standards. That's fine. I think if that's her standard, that's completely fine. But where the dissonance comes for me is, with all of that, is like, if this woman was, you know, close to 50, if not 50. And I'm like, you have a successful job, you make a lot of money, where you could take care of yourself and someone else. In fact, traditionally, a man who had her same position would be head of household and taking care of the household. She has lots of men that work under her that are her same age, younger than her, older than her. But she still wanted a man to have all these responsibilities and saying stuff like, be a man and blank. Well, I just feel like the man should blank. But at the same time, if a man told her, well, I just feel like a woman should do XYZ, she would feel offended. She would feel like she's being manipulated and somebody's trying to get her to do something against her will, or trying to take her back to a part of her that she's already elevated from. I just feel like a woman should be home at, I feel like a woman should be at home at 5. You don't need to do this. Like, what? I am the blah, 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 blah. I have to be out and network and do all of that, as she should. Already you're successful, so you should be doing that. But what's confusing is you want a man to live up to this certain standard, but then you don't want to live up to this certain standard. So my point isn't to say that she shouldn't have her standard. People are allowed to have whatever delusional standard that they want. My point is to say that you don't have to abide by that, and don't get manipulated and brought into that. I was so confused because I was like, you know, broke, didn't have that much money, but just because she perceived me as a man, she felt like I should pay for whatever she did, even though she was 20 years older than me, had like an executive level job, owned multiple houses and all this stuff. And I'm not pocket watching. I'm just saying, like, if I was in the opposite position, I would be like, oh yeah, it's like no big deal. I wouldn't even be thinking about it like that. I'd be like, oh yeah, it's no big deal to cover this or cover that. You need help with something else. Like, even myself now, and I'm not that old or not that, I'm not the richest person, but I have people younger than me that if they need help or they need something simple, I'll help them out. And it's a very interesting thing that people still expect. It's just always surprising to me that people still expect men to have these old school standards. I used to work in an office with a bunch of women. Most of them made more money than me in this office, and that was fine. They had other degrees and skills that put them in that position. But whenever like there was like a package or something that came to the office, which was often, we got different like types of like medical supplies, stuff like that, it would be my job or one of the guys' job to come stop what we were doing at work. If we had a call or something like that, stop that and go and lift and bring the stuff in. We didn't have some type of like concierge that could do that. Actually, we did. We had like a secretary there, but she, I guess, couldn't lift the packages, or just because the fact that she was a woman, wasn't disabled or anything. She just wouldn't lift the packages, but they would just come and get me to lift the packages. And yeah, I get it. Your boy's been working out. Paper. Yeah, I get it. Okay, I get it. But I'm just like, that doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense to me. And I'm sure that there are many instances in the workplace where maybe there's a dinner going on and they just volunteer all the women to cook the dinner or something like that. I'm making a stereotype, right? But these instances when these things happen to men, it's just very interesting. And it's like a silent manipulation tactic. And if you don't watch out for it, they'll drag you deep. Like, folks will drag you deep. And I started this talking about men because I wanted to highlight that men do this to men often. Just more often than women do it to men. Men do this to men. They'd be like, come on, be a man. Like, da-da-da. That is like a popular manipulation tactic. And it's basically like to say, like, fight through it. I like saying fight through it. If there's something that's going on, all right, yo, fight through it. Like, you're going to be all right. Like, that's one thing. But specifically the be a man part, that I don't like, because it's like, you are a man. You are that. That is not something that is taken away. That's not something that you get because you provide for people, or that you lifted a certain amount of weight, or that you fixed a certain amount of cars. You know what I'm saying? So like, that's just confusing to me. I don't know. That is confusing to me. And it's been a problem going on for a while. And I think a lot of young guys don't get it. Like, because they want to, when you're young, you're like, oh yeah, I want to be a man. I want people to see me as a man. I want them to see me as like, real and masculine. And like, that's, in my opinion, is when you're the least masculine. That, in my opinion, is when you have the least amount of confidence. Like, it's about, I was about to say being a man is, but I feel like if there's one thing that it's about, being a person, that when you're really yourself, truly yourself, and not moving whatever way the wind blows or trying to, like, it's about being confident. And that means when somebody says, oh, be a man, and you have the power to say no. The way to solve this type of manipulation is using the power of no. Sometimes you got to let folks know, nah, I'm good. Thanks. What did the Spider-Man NPC guy say? Nah, I think I'm gonna do my own thing. Exactly. Exactly. That's what it's about. Doing your own thing. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap this one up, but thank you guys. Make sure to subscribe if you watch this video. At Paperboy the Prince on Instagram, at Paperboy Prince on Twitter. Paper, yeah. One love. Let me know what you guys think. I hope this made some sense to some folks. This is just something I was like ranting about and I think about, but paper, yeah.